Unfortunately, I didn't have the camera running. I decided to give the engine a crank over and just see if it would run or fire up, and I squirted some petrol into the carburetors, cranked it over, and it backfired and the jet ski caught on fire. Luckily I had this fire extinguisher handy and managed to put the fire out. So it's back to the drawing board. I have to pull the engine out and find out why it's backfiring and not running, and also see what damage I've done, if I've melted any wires or anything. This morning I'm going to pull the engine out, but before I do that I'm going to do a few checks like compression and spark, make sure I've got them. Okay, I do have spark and I do have compression. Time to pull the engine mount bolts out and get the engine out. I also checked the MPEM, or it's actually the engine control unit, to make sure it was working correctly. John gave me a hand to muscle the engine out of the engine bay. It looks like a bit of degreaser will tidy up that area. I'm fairly sure that the engine is not firing correctly, and I think the reason for that is that the actual motor is a 2000 model and the ECU is a 1998 model, which is incompatible with the 2000 model stator magnetic cap. The 1998 model has a single coil with 2 outlets, and the 2000 model has 2 separate coils, which means that the stator caps need to send different signals for the different years, and so the stator caps are very different. It's only one. It would actually be the problem. See this this section here compared to this section is a lot bigger, and it doesn't have this or this in there, only another one of those. So I suspect that this should have been mounted to that for the 2008 ECU or MPEM, and this is for a year 2000 ECU. I'm not a big fan of Loctite, but on these particular bolts they do need a bit of help to ensure that they don't fall out. And although this particular 2-stroke engine has a very substantial counterbalance, it still has quite a few vibrations. What I'm doing now is removing the oil pump. So I've removed the oil pump from here. So that's the two-stroke oil pumps through these lines and through there, through some injectors, and there, hopefully you can see that. So they're the injectors that inject the oil through the reed valves and into the motor. So what I've done here is I've heated up the plastic, and then squeezed it over to seal it off. And then I'm going to cut the pipe. So that's it sealed off. A few other things that I'll need to check before I put it back in, and that's clean out the fuel filter and also the fuel pump, which is in here, a bit hard to see, and also give it a steam clean. I've removed the jet pump also down here, and what I'll do is I'll remove the shaft. Should come out fairly easily. The shaft, it's all pretty rusty, so what I do is I'll epoxy coat this. I'll put it in the lathe, clean it up, and give it a coat of epoxy, and also rebuild the jet pump. Just make sure everything's all right in there. Have a look at the oil, bearings and things. And this one hasn't got a reverse gear, so maybe I'll be able to find a reverse gear somewhere. A bit's broken here.